We're going to turn now to domestic politics here at home. There's new Emerson College polling that's showing Donald Trump leading President Joe Biden in a hypothetical 2024 election matchup. According to the latest survey, Trump holds a 4-point lead over Biden, 47% to 43% among registered voters. That's an 8-point swing from last November when the poll showed Biden leading Trump by 4 points. When third-party candidates are included on the ballot, Trump's lead grows to 6 points. Joining us now, Norm Ornstein. He is an emeritus scholar at the American Enterprise Institute and contributing editor for The Atlantic. And Norm, despite the numbers, you say it's too early to freak out. Are you sure?
I am sure about that, Mika. You know, a year before the election, and many of these polls are questionable to begin with, Joe Biden's standing, no doubt, is low. But this is a referendum right now. As we get closer and closer to the election, it becomes more of a choice. And as Joe was saying earlier, when the conversation turns to Trump more than to Biden, things change. But having said that, the one part of this poll that gives me chills and great pause is what happens with the other candidates. I mean, when I look at the election, I'm thinking of a couple of groups of voters. One is Biden needs an excited base. The war, depending on how it goes, may have a little bit of a problem for that. But otherwise, we're talking about 100,000 voters in a handful of states who are going to make the difference. And a pernicious no labels candidacy, a Cornel West and the others. If you have voters who aren't thrilled with Biden but hate Trump, give them another choice, and those swing voters could make a real difference. That's what makes me most nervous about the election.
Joe Manchin maybe would jump in?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Manchin, I saw a lot of talk. Well, this hurts Democrats in the Senate. Manchin decided not to run because he was going to lose that seat. No other Democrat could win that seat. He wants to stay in the spotlight. But No Labels at least says that they want a Republican heading the ticket, which would mean Manchin is number 2. Will Manchin accept number 2? But if he does, you know, a ticket that may be headed by John Huntsman or Larry Hogan with Joe Manchin, those swing voters, the suburban Republican independent voters, may decide that they can salve their consciences by not voting for Trump, but voting for that kind of ticket. I think it helps Trump, and that's what scares me.
That's good. Jonathan Lemire, Joe Manchin has said he could never vote for Donald Trump. So why would he do something that is clearly, I mean, do these people lose their heads when they become presidential candidates? And
Manchin also said in the last couple weeks ago when he announced he would not run for re-election, he said, I don't want to do anything to help Trump win. But yet most people agree with your analysis that this would certainly help Trump win. And we've heard that from other candidates, too, including Cornel West, who says he doesn't want to be part of a Trump victory. That's why there's some in Biden world who believe that they won't follow through with those bids between now and Election Day. But right now, they pose a real threat. But I want to go back to something you said a second ago about the Democratic base and there's sort of a lack of enthusiasm. And part of that is among voters of color. The polls show, and again, a poll, caveat, it's a snapshot, but there are trends that seem to matter more. And it seems like voters of color are less into Joe Biden than they were, and the fear is they might not vote for Trump, but they might stay home.
And I think, you know, there's that part of the base. There's also young voters who I think are going to end up motivated by the Dobbs decision and what's following, which is just a horrific set of actions in Republican states involving women's health. I think for younger voters, that may make a difference. Maybe it will for some voters of color. But an awful lot of attention has to be paid by Biden's campaign, by Democrats generally, to making sure that the stakes of this election are clear. And that includes some of the Arab American voters who now say they could never vote for Joe Biden. Are they going to allow somebody who wants an immediate Muslim ban to go in? It goes for Hispanic voters. You know, they're citizens. Some of them may not care as much about the immigrants. But what Trump would do, what we now know, concentration camps in effect for millions of immigrants. You've got to make this case, and you have to make it that it is a choice. And it's a choice, as you guys have been saying eloquently, Do you want fascism?
Right.
Or do you want an imperfect democracy?
I also think that the trouble with the polling, I always look at it because it's anything to get energized and to get nervous. I think it's a good thing. But I don't think people are ready to. There's a lot that the Biden administration, the Biden campaign has to work with, to message with, and that's also overwhelming. That can be a stark, clear message is much easier. But managing the world, right? Managing women's rights, managing this administration and its historic accomplishments, okay? Still working on the economy is what he needs to say, and I'll get to that in a moment, compared to Trump, compared to all the things that are going against this guy, including legal issues and crimes potentially committed and just offensive behavior. But back to the economy, isn't it important to communicate to Americans that the job isn't done yet, that the data points look good, but people aren't? I mean, if you talk to young people today in their 30s, you know, they're struggling. They're not feeling a great economy. They are counting their groceries. They are wondering if they should order takeout. This is not a great economy for them. They're not feeling it. We've talked about that several times. And I think if there's bragging on the economic numbers, that could fall short.
You're exactly right. You know, it's odd with the economy. You ask people whether they're doing well. And except for those young voters, most Americans say they're doing fine, but the economy sucks. And you can't go out there and tell people, look at the great things we've done. And Biden's done some terrific things without understanding that that broader perspective has to be dealt with. And you have to focus on telling them exactly that the job is not done, but we feel your pain and we're doing something that whatever we can do about it. You know, there's messaging that is, look at the good things that I've done. More important in this election is look at what the alternative is. And that has to be what motivates both the base voters, but also those swing voters. And they're not large in number. This is a tribal society now. Most Americans identify with one of those two parties. But it's those voters who could switch, who are uneasy with Trump. And I do think, you know, most people have not focused on Trump's legal issues. They're not spending their days watching what's going on. We haven't had trials that are televised.
Gag order updates.
Wait till he gets convicted of something. And then I think the dynamic will shift some. And that won't happen until after he's pretty much secured a nomination.
I know. I mean, the timing on these, Lemire, I don't know of.
There's only one trial that looks like it could wrap up.
What's that?
Before the election, and that's the federal election interference case, the January 6th Jack Smith case. And we should say there was the New York Times polling of just a few weeks ago that set off alarm bells among Democrats because it had Trump up in all the battleground states, except if he were to be convicted, he'd drop 6 points
before the nomination,
and it would put Biden up again. It's unclear before or right around the nomination.
Wow. Emeritus scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, Norm Ornstein. Thank you so much. It's always great to have you on. Great insights.